Welcome to our Good Friday worship experience with Woodville United Methodist Church. After we left the dinner table last night, the events that unfolded led Jesus to the garden where he was arrested. This morning we pick up with the trial, with the public conviction, the crucifixion, the journey to the cross, and to the tomb. We invite you to journey with us today, journeying all the way through. There are events and scriptures that will be hard to listen. There will be scriptures that cause us to tremble. And yet we invite you to go with us all the way to the cross, all the way to the tomb. And then we invite you to rejoin us on Sunday morning for the rest of the story.
Pilate went back into the palace. He summoned Jesus and asked, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus answered, "Do you say this on your own, or have others spoken to you about me?" Pilate responded, "I'm not a Jew, am I? Your nation and its chief priests handed you over to me. What have you done?" Jesus replied, "My kingdom doesn't originate from this world. If it did, my guards would fight so that I wouldn't have been arrested by the Jews. My kingdom isn't from here." "So you are a king," Pilate said. Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. I was born and came into the world for this reason, to testify to the truth. Whoever accepts the truth listens to my voice." "What is truth?" Pilate asked.
After Pilate said this, he returned to the Jews and said, "I find no grounds for any charge against him. You have a custom that I release one prisoner for you at Passover. Do you want me to release for you the King of Jews?" They shouted, "Not this man, give us Barabbas."
Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they crucified my Lord?
Then Pilate had Jesus taken and whipped. The soldiers twisted together a crown of thorns and put it on his head, and dressed him in a purple robe. Over and over they went up to him, saying, "Greetings, King of the Jews." And they slapped him in the face. Pilate came out of the palace again and said to the Jews, "Look, I'm bringing him out to you to let you know that I find no grounds for a charge against him." When Jesus came out wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe, Pilate said to them, "Here's the man." When the chief priests and their deputies saw him, they shouted out, "Crucify, crucify." Pilate told them, "You take him and crucify him. I do not find any grounds for a charge against him." The Jews replied, "We have a law, and according to this law, he ought to die because he made himself out to be God's son." When Pilate heard this word, he was even more afraid. He went back into the residence and spoke to Jesus. "Where are you from?" Jesus did not answer. So Pilate said, "You won't speak to me? Don't you know that I have authority to release you and also to crucify you?" Jesus replied, "You would have no authority over me if it had not been given to you from above. That's why the one who handed me over to you has the greater sin. From that moment on, Pilate wanted to release Jesus. However, the Jews cried out, saying, "If you release this man, you are not a friend of the emperor. Anyone who makes himself out to be a king opposes the emperor." When Pilate heard these words, he led Jesus out and seated him on the judge's bench at the place called the Stone Pavement. It was about noon on the preparation day for the Passover. Pilate said to the Jews, "Here's your king." And the Jews cried out, "Take him away. Take him away and crucify him." Pilate responded, "What? Do you want me to crucify your king?" "We have no king except the emperor," the chief priest answered. Then Pilate handed Jesus over to be crucified.
Were you there when they nailed him to the tree? Were you there when they nailed him to the tree? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they nailed him to the tree?
The soldiers took Jesus prisoner, carrying his cross by himself. He went out to a place called Skull Place, in Aramaic, Golgotha. That's where they crucified him, and 2 others with him, 1 on each side and Jesus in the middle. Pilate had a public notice written and posted on the cross. It read, "Jesus the Nazarene, the King of the Jews." Many of the Jews read this sign, for the place where Jesus was crucified was near the city and was written in Aramaic, Latin, and Greek. Therefore the Jewish chief priest complained to Pilate, "Don't write the King of the Jews," but this man said, "I am the King of the Jews." Pilate answered, "What I've written, I've written." When the soldiers crucified Jesus, they took his clothes and his sandals and divided them into 4 shares, 1 for each soldier. His shirt was seamless, woven as one piece from the top to the bottom. They said to each other, "Let's not tear it, let's cast lots to see who will get it." This was to fulfill the scripture. "They divided my clothes among themselves, and they cast lots for my clothing." That's what the soldiers did. Jesus' mother and his mother's sister Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene stood near the cross. When Jesus saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved standing nearby, he said to his mother, "Woman, here is your son." Then he said to the disciple, "Here is your mother." And from that time on, this disciple took her into his home. After this, knowing that everything was already completed, and in order to fulfill the scripture, Jesus said, "I am thirsty." A jar full of sour wine was nearby, so the soldiers soaked a sponge on it, placed it on a hyssop branch, and held it to his lips. When he received the sour wine, Jesus said, "It is completed." Bowing his head, he gave up his life.
Were you there when they pierced him in the side? Were you there when they pierced him in the side? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they pierced him in the side?
It was a preparation day, and Jews did not want the bodies to remain on the cross on the Sabbath, especially since that Sabbath was an important day. So they asked Pilate to have the legs of those crucified broken and the bodies taken down. Therefore the soldiers came and broke the legs of the 2 men who were crucified with Jesus. When they came to Jesus, they saw that he was already dead, so they did not break his legs. However, one of the soldiers pierced his side with a spear, and immediately blood and water came out. The one who saw this has testified, and his testimony is true. He knows that he speaks the truth, and he has testified so that you also can believe. These things happen to fulfill the scripture. They will not break any of his bones. And another scripture that says, they will look at him whom they have pierced.
Were you there when the sun refused to shine? Were you there when the sun refused to shine? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when the sun refused to shine?
After this, Joseph of Arimathea asked Pilate if he could take away the body of Jesus. Joseph was a disciple of Jesus, but a secret one because he feared the Jewish authorities. Pilate gave him permission, so he came and took the body away. Nicodemus, the one who had first come to Jesus at night, was there also. He brought a mixture of myrrh and aloe, nearly 75 pounds in all. Following Jewish burial customs, they took Jesus' body and they wrapped it with the spices in linen cloths. There was a garden in the place where Jesus was crucified, and in the garden was a new tomb in which no one had ever been laid. Because it was the Jewish preparation day and the tomb was nearby, they laid Jesus in it.
Were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble.